Okay. Everybody here?
Yeah.
We can start. We're just getting the final beer for the cameraman.
The cameraman is asking for another beer.
Hi everybody, welcome to Koehler-Ruprecht. Welcome to the Pfalz.
Welcome to the evening and summer. Welcome to summer as well.
Yeah.
Just started 2 days ago, and it will look like summer as soon as we are out of the courtyard.
Yeah, it looks a bit darker in here. It's the courtyard, but it's beautiful outside.
All right. So I'm assuming everyone knows us. If not, we're in a little place called Kalbstadt in the area of Pfalz, just about an hour south of Frankfurt, an hour north of Strasbourg, and about 20 minutes west of the Rhine River. We have about 30 acres, mainly Riesling, also Pinot Noir, Pinot Blanc, Chardonnay, and a little bit of Scheurebe, and what else?
Muscatella.
Muscatella. I think that's pretty much it. And the plan for today, the idea for today is to show you around a couple of vineyards, about 3 vineyards. And then in between, Kevin and Carl will show you a couple of tapes from the cellar, since we don't have a reception in the cellar. So we already taped those with Franzi. And and then after seeing those vineyards, I think we're pretty much done. Unless you have a couple of questions. And you can ask basically everything, but not the bank details.
Everything.
Not the bank details. And yes, and I would say we should hit the road.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Hey. Yeah.
Ja. Hast du Schlüssel?
Oh,
Okay.
All right. So what you see right now is the old building from the 1700s. An old wine from maybe 1800 something. And here you can even see a fig tree or fig bush, whatever you call it in English. So it's one of the warmest areas in the Germany. That's why we also have like Chardonnay and Pinot varietals. Yep. All right. Let's go to the car. Cross the busy street.
Welcome to the Weinstraße. And here you get an idea of what the winery looks from the outside. It's like
so that's winery.
and to the
from
right.
here on, it's our hotel, which is Weinkastel zu Weißenross. And in the corner, that's the restaurant building. And the bank is right next to it. We don't own the bank. But everything you see right there until right here is ours. Big building for a small winery, by the way.
So the winery is located in the center of the village. I think Karlstadt has 1,200 inhabitants, 1,300 inhabitants. It's a little village. Yeah, but wine making vineyards are very historic from here.
Ja? Ah, okay. Also läuft alles, oder?
Ja.
Keine Antwort, aber.
The whole world watches us.
Ja. Wait, I have to.
Okay, so now comes the boring part. We will get out of the parking lot and then drive a little bit through the village. And then we're almost at our first stop in the vineyards. Another view of the Weinkastel and the winery. Pretty view of the church tower, the bell tower, which is from the Middle Ages.
You picked actually one of the most beautiful days today. It's been quite cloudy and rainy last week.
It's not that they picked, it's that us picked.
Oh, yeah, true.
And then here's it's basically the end of the village. So we started in the middle. Now you can imagine then how big the village is. It's not really big. The yellow house is the old Trump winery. Just saying it once. And now we already left the village. To the right-hand side is our Steinacker vineyard, which means stony field, stony acre. And then we go to the left-hand side, which is our Saumagen vineyard, which is translated into pig stomach, just because it's shaped like a pig stomach. I don't say that. And like you can see, it's rolling hills. The sun is going to the west, so it's east-facing vineyards on this block, and most of those vineyards planted in 1988 after a big land reconstructing. Before that, we had a couple of terraces and single pole vineyards. But now everything is we're able to go and work everything by machine, by tractor, since we are pretty efficient Germans. I don't know those guys, but they're probably tourists. And what you also see is that it's pretty diverse. So it's not. It is, of course, it is monoculture. It is monoculture, and but also there's a lot of trees and bushes in between. So we try to have a little bit of biodiversity in the vineyards, just because of the green touch we have in most of our parliaments already. And now here we are getting closer to our first stop, almost there. And so we'll show you one vineyard. We'll show you the view of the Rhine Valley, which is more like the plains of the Rhine in our area. And then we'll show you an old Roman limestone quarry. All right. So I'll take the phone for a second. So what you see here is the Rhine Valley. The mountains on the other side are basically, well, the Rhine is in the middle of us and the mountains on the other side. Let's put it this way. If you see the white building down there, that's where the Rhine River is. And if we would have air traffic, which hasn't happened since mid-March, we would even see, like in the far north of here, you would even see Frankfurt and the planes approaching to Frankfurt. So just an hour, like I said. And then down there where the bigger buildings, that's part of the co-op, and there's a little bit more of the village. From like the northern part of the village, we'll see the southern part of the village in a bit, actually. And so that's well,
in between the mountains and here, the big city houses or chimneys or big buildings you can probably see is Mannheim and Ludwigshafen.
Yeah, which is the chimneys. That's the big chemical company, the BASF, or how do they say in Spanish, BASF. And that's where the fun starts. So they illuminate the sky in the night for us. We don't need a lot of power for the night. And what we see here is one of our vineyards. We'll probably get closer to explain you the different vineyards, whatever we do in the vineyard a little later in the Annaberg and the other Riesling vineyard. But you can see that we had finally a little bit of rain last week. It's still the dark spots that's still wet, which is nice. And we already trimmed early last week, I believe, and which is pretty early. So we are we're having another warm year. So usually trimming starts, if it's a normal year, trimming would start right now. So I mean, that's about a week or 2 weeks early, but that's the way it is. That's what we will live with. And what's normal for the region is, like, you can see from here to here is our vineyard. So it's not a big one, and that's pretty normal for us. The biggest vineyard is about 3 acres size, and the others are all smaller blocks. But that's very traditional for the region and for the whole area. Yep. And I think now we move on to the old Roman limestone quarry. Well, this is not actually Roman, but it started on the Roman days. So we'll walk up the hill a little bit to the Sportplatz, the soccer field, and you can see in the back, you can already see the limestones. And we'll walk up there, show you that, and then we will continue to the Annaberg vineyard. Soils in the Rhine Valley is pretty fertile. So yeah. So he's carrying his beer since he thought he needs to film quite a bit. He will in a second. So we have pretty fertile soils with a lesser loam, and in our little Kaltstadt we have also a lot of gravel, Steinacker, like I said before, stony fill, red sandstone, and also limestone. That's the main stone variety we have as the limestone. And here you can see the old quarry and the yellow white limestone, where they took the stones for building houses, actually. And the soccer field is not really in good shape, so maybe someday, that's one of our big dreams, we'll build a big infinity pool up here. Or we'll do a Metallica concert or something else. Just because the fun, just because the view is pretty nice, like you can see. It is a pretty good day. Almost no clouds in the sky. Mm. All right. Well, Carl, then I think you can start the first movie. Still there?
Yes, yeah. I'll get it started.
Yeah.
How long a drive is it?
About 6 to 8 minutes, maybe.
Perfect. All right.
All right. See you in a bit.
Yep.
Okay, guys. Hi. So we're continuing the virtual tour through the winery to the cellar. And yeah, I just want to give you a tour around our barrel cellar. Oh, let's have a look. Okay, so what you can see is a lot of barrels, and that's the big tradition of the winery. So Koehler-Ruprecht is one of the very last, if not, the last, not really sure about that, wineries using 100% old oak barrels for fermentation and aging, especially for the white wines. So the white wines are, as I said, fermented and aged in those old oak barrels. And if I talk about oak barrels, those barrels come from, or the wood from those barrels comes from the local forest, the Pfalz forest, which is the largest connected forest area in Germany. And as you can see, we have those barrels in many, many different sizes. The traditional shape from the region is oval, not round like the Mosel Fuder, but the typical Pfalz Stückfass. It's like the piece or pièce in French. Is a 1200 liter barrel, which size-wise would be this one here. And then here in the front part you see the very small ones, around 300 liters, 350, 240 something. And we have a couple of 1600 liter barrels, couple of smaller ones again. Those are rather new ones, used for Chardonnay in the beginning, especially those two here. And once they are kind of neutral by taste, like the flavors, they can also be used for Riesling as well. We continue with the tour, and as you can see, the cellar is not very old. It's a concrete cellar which was built in the late 80s. Conditions probably not the best for the barrels because it's quite dry. It doesn't look like that right now, but usually it's a very dry cellar. It's not an old sandstone or stone cellar. It lacks a lot of humidity, so once every now and then you have to spray water to keep the humidity in the cellar high, and therefore for the quality of the barrels. I want to continue in the back of the cellar. So this is the front part. We just came from the stairs up here, from the warehouse down here in the cellar, and we will go to the back. Couple of more barrels, more of those tiny little barrels. To the right side, couple of pumps, pet filter, and also those two, it's like permanent hoses. But I will explain to you what this means in a bit. And here does the section start where most of the 600 liter barrels are. So the front part is majority 1200 Stückfass, 1600 liter barrels, Doppelstück 2400. And in this part here in the back, it's most of the 600 liter barrels. In total, the cellar contains more than 115 barrels, not including the barriques. So all those old neutral oak barrels in many different sizes. And here is a treasure room for some of the wines we want to keep a little bit longer, or we want to age a little bit longer in the bottle before we start releasing them. Perfect humidity, well, not only humidity, but also perfect condition for those bottles here, because it's the wettest part of the cellar. And once we want to sell them, we take them out, clean the bottles, label them, and sell them.
Awesome.
All right, Dominik, you're back.
All right. Just
all right.
just perfect timing. So what we see here is the Pfalz Forest in the back, which is our basically western boundary. And here we go along the Koehler-Ruprecht Vineyard, and then inside the Annaberg Vineyard, just because it is surrounded by a little wall and fence, so you can see it's like a clos in Burgundy or in France. But the main part you see here, difference is here you can see the soil is a huge difference in between here and over there. So that's the Kreidkeller, which translates into chalk cellar, and you can basically see why it's named like this. It is here in the back you can see even better up in where the trees start again. That's where all those limestones, rocks, and the chalk is, and that's the unique part of the more or less Kaltstadt terroir, Kaltstadt place. And now we go into the shade, into the Annaberg Vineyard, welcomed by another fig tree, and we're at an elevation of about 250 meters, which is what's that, 800 feet maybe, well, whatever. And so that's kind of the highest peaks of the Pfalz as well, or the highest vineyards of the Pfalz. What you see in the forest, the white flowering, that's chestnut trees. Actually, they are still in bloom. Usually they're in bloom when the vines are in bloom, but this year the vineyards were a little early. And down there is the town of Bad Dürkheim, and here you can see our one of the Pinot Blanc vineyards, the Weißburgunder vineyards, and you can immediately see the difference from the soil from here, like from there to here. See, there's still a little bit of chalk left, but not as much as in the vineyard right next door, which is always a big surprise. So there's a real difference in the vineyards, and there's always of course a difference, and why they named it different as well. Yeah, we'll go square. And this is actually one of the older Chardonnay vineyards you can find in Pfalz. It's from 1991. We weren't allowed to plant Chardonnay until 1990, so that's one of the very first, and gives us the lovely Spätlese Trocken Chardonnay, and you can already see the little grapes. So bloom is about over for let's say a week and a half, and it's already getting juice not in there yet, but it's already getting wet. So the grapes are, harvest coming. And that needs to be see here. So just because the vineyard is elevated a little higher, we do need another trimming, just because we haven't done it yet in here. Yeah, and the guys again. Ray still hasn't finished his beer. Well, he will continue in a second, because I'll give him the camera in a second. And then we can continue a little bit closer to the forest, where like everything on the right part is ours, and half of the left part is ours too, which is the left is Weißburgunder and Scheurebe, and the right part is Chardonnay and Riesling. The Riesling we have up here is all going into the Kaltstadter blend, so the basic blend, just because the closer we go to the forest, the more sandstone we have. So there's almost only sand left in a couple of meters. Yeah, so see, there's already the dust's already there. So there's still humidity in the vineyards. but it's way drier up here than where we just been, just because the sand doesn't hold the water as well. And here is it's our oldest vineyard, Riesling parcel, planted in 68, I believe. So we'll see how long we keep that in shape. Not too sure yet, since like I told you, it's all going into the basic cultural blend, and it's not that complex to have a single vineyard Riesling. So maybe someday again. Yeah, we'll have to see. But even here, you can see the Riesling's already getting in shape, which is it's pretty cool. And cover crop mowed once. Oh, actually, whoever follows us on Instagram, that's where the sheep were. So it's basically mowed twice this year. First with the sheep and second with a mower. And then the other row here is open. So what you see here will look like this next year. All right. So we try to not use fertilizers besides compost. So we do the cover crop to get fertilizers and nutrients into the soil by changing that every other year. And usually you see some deer as well, but they are not home today. Maybe they'll come back later tonight.
They're out for beer.
Yeah. They know we're hungry. Okay, then we will drive to the Sauermarken vineyard, but now to the other side, to the south-facing part. And I think you should stay with us on board. And then when we're done in the Sauermarken, then you can show the other clip for the cellar, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Yep. Just waiting for an answer.
So Annaberg Chardonnay is from here.
Yeah. So the Annaberg Chardonnay is basically from this block. Again, not much, but pretty tasty.
Young vines.
Yeah, and that's younger vines planted in 2014, and used to be Weissburgunder, Pinot Blanc, but not the very best. So we thought we'll do some Chardonnay, and hopefully, we also already have the wine in the cellar, but need to put it in a bottle to make a sect sparkling wine out of it. Maybe we'll put that in bottle somewhere late summer, and then and then go from there. A little bee hotel. And David McDuff, I can see your comments. That's pretty cool. And now we're leaving the Annaberg and being back in the Greitkeller. See, totally different terroir, but still same vineyard treatments. So we don't change the vineyard work and the philosophy within the blocks and the vineyards. We just do what we know best. And here you can see the drip lines actually. So in some vineyards we put drip lines in. That vineyard is as old as the young Chardonnays are planted in 2014, but you can see it's still already thinner, so not as fertile as inside Annaberg. And what else you can see is the neighbor. I usually don't show you neighbor pictures, but just because it's so pretty. See, we don't have to say much, but there is a difference. See, I mean, it's all herbicide. You can play golf if you want to. That's why, that's what others do best, But all right, So going back to Sauwagen, Ray will go back to the camera, and then we will. So you can. We'll go. Well, we drive from Kreitkeller through Steinacker, but a different part of Steinacker, and then we don't show you my car all the time. And then we see that no one wants to be on the camera. So we'll go drive through the Steinacker, and then we'll have already a view. We come from the south, we're a perfect view to the Sauwagen Vineyard already. Yeah, but I'll mention it in the car later on. All right. Weiß auch ein Wein, Filmen, trinken und anschauen. All right. Okay.
Annaberg is also the vineyard where we keep our
The pumice.
The pumice to make our own compost. It's far in the back, like very close to right next to the forest. That's where the compost pile is.
Yep. Yeah, it's already late in the day over here, so we didn't go all the way back to the forest. Okay, so now we go downhill, still in the Kreitkeller vineyard. And now you can see again the bushes and the trees, so just for the biodiversity, for the birds and stuff. And there's a big new planting to the right, which is not ours.
Tom, I have a question that came up. Maybe you can answer now while you're driving. Is there a plan to release a Kreitkeller wine in the future?
There's a potential release maybe in 2020, maybe in 21. The Kreitkeller actually went into the Kaltsteiner blend as well for the last couple of years, just because it's still a young vineyard, and we just feel that it's not yet ready for a single vineyard bottling, and that's the only block we have in the Kreitkeller vineyard. But the potential is there. The old vineyard always tasted pretty good, and so there's a potential to have it someday. Yeah, always depending on the vintage, a Kreitkeller vineyard blend.
Yeah, so right now it's like a 700-800 liter barrel, which is not much for.
Well, but it's still just enough for the year.
Yeah.
It's enough for even Fingern, though, I think.
Yeah. All right, so now we drive from the south, having the view to the Sauwagen again. And so we are in the Steinacker vineyard, but Steinacker, like where the Steinacker cabinet we make, that's just outside the village where we drove by the very first time. Steinacker is so big that we usually only use it for this one vineyard out there. That's the original part, the gravelstone and sandstone. Up here is much more diverse vineyard land and soil, so it's not really what we want to call Steinacker, just because it had been a different name in the past as well. And with the land reconstructing, they put the vineyards together and just gave it one name, just made things easy on the paper, but also not necessarily in the taste of the wines. Right, the old trellis system, that's typical for Pfalz. Single cane, double cane, that's pretty standard as well. In Karlstadt, most is Riesling, but I'm not even sure how many varieties we can grow in Pfalz legally, but there's like tons of it. See, there's another limestone quarry in the back on the left. And this is now the borderline from Steinacker going into Sauwagen. So still coming from the south. And now to the right, that's where Sauwagen starts, and that's where this vineyard is not the prettiest, but
it's not our Sauwagen, right?
That's a GG vineyard there, right there. And
QBA.
yeah, QBA GG vineyard. And right here starts ours. Already in the shape as well, but doesn't hurt. Just because it's not getting ripe. It's not yet. We'll stop in a second. Stop here, and then we can have a look into the vineyard and maybe into the terrace afterwards. Yeah.
Dominik, how many times during the season would you trim the tops of the vines back? Once,
about 2 to 3 times. Like right now, what we do is more like hitching, like the tops, and then we go through and do the rest later on. Right, so this one's not done yet, just because canopy or wire work's not done yet. So that's the next step. If we have everything inside the wires, then we come with a hitcher, and that's not done by hand as well. But we do that with the machine, which is
yeah, got that. Thank you.
And so another vineyard, Southern vineyard, most important vineyard, south facing, planted in
88.
88, 80,
84, 88.
84, 86, 84. Ah, well, somewhere back in the 80s. And
In the 80s.
2 or 3 different clones, Geisenheim clones. And you can see when you get closer to the grapes, you can see the difference to the Annaberg already. It's a little bit bigger, and well, not to the Annaberg Riesling, and already see a little bit more juice in it. And the Riesling up there is still like 3 or 4 days behind, and that sometimes in difficult years, it's 4 days is quite a bit. If you imagine that we have 100 days in between bloom and picking, 4 days is 4%, 5%. That's in banking language, that's quite a bit of interest rate. So it's enormous, the difference between here and there. And also the altitude, we're now down to 600 feet, even a little less than this, roughly 600 feet. And yeah, everything's looking pretty good this year. Bloom was fine. The weather has been perfect since March 14th, since the 4th or 15th or 17th, the German lockdown. Everything was perfect. We didn't have a lot of rain, but we got the rain, so everything is fine on that side. And the only work we do right now in the vineyard, after putting all the shoots together into the wires, is wait for the harvest. So we can get another couple of beers and
Prepare the next one.
yeah, prepare for the next vintage. That's the golden plan. And to show you another view from Saumang, we'll go up to our terrace vineyard. So that's planted in 2014 as well. Same day as the Koehler-Ruprecht and same day as the Chardonnay in Annaberg. And yep, just come up with us and have a look.
Good.
Soll der vorliegen?
Ja, okay.
Ist egal. Genau, ist super. So.
So ist es.
Ja. Watch out your beer, eh?
It's empty.
All right. Here, you can see now. Well, I'll try to explain a little better what we do with the picking. Huh? Yeah. Again, young vineyard, bigger berries, right? Looks almost like the Chardonnay.
It's much bigger than.
And I put a couple of leaves away, even though I don't like to do that, but this way you have a better idea what to do. So what you see is a half bowl. That's very traditional. Used to be even bigger to get more crop in the past, but that's fine with us the way it is right now. And you can also see the difference of the clusters, like the structure, totally different depending on the position. Right, those are a little bigger. Those are smaller. That's a big one. That's from the other plant. Those are small. Those are small. And so what we do later on, since we're talking about the GG and the QBA, we only do Prädikatswein, and even Prädikatswein trocken. That's kind of our philosophy. So everything you can find from Saumagen is Prädikat, Kabinett trocken, Spätlese trocken, or Auslese trocken, and some of the other reserve wines as well. So the secret to that is the different picking. So it's a little too early to tell you, even for us, but to give you the ideal picture is that this cluster, probably this cluster, and maybe this one up here will go into the cabinet selection. This one, and maybe this one, Spätlese, this one as well. And then this one, potentially this one, could go into the Auslese selection. And the ones with like the small berries, that's already shot berries. You can already say that. The ones without seeds or pits later on, maybe that is potential too. That will go into the R selection, which means everything is fermented the same way, treated the same way, just bottled later on, and bottled even the same way, just released later on. That's kind of the secret to that, and that's the most challenging part of the year, to wait for the harvest, for the flavors, and then make the right decision at the right time. You can also see the drip lines in here. Just because it's terraced vineyard, it is, you can see the soil, it is heavier soil, but still it's dry, right? You don't see the wet spots. So it's not holding the water as well as it should. So we do have the drip line in there just in case, and it gets 95 to 100 or 104 in summer, and then we will need it for sure. That's kind of the reason we have the drip line in it. The old wines, we don't have it just because we don't really need it. But all depending on how the climate change goes, we will see more and more dry vintages and drier years. So the only thing we can do against it is build up the humus and give a little bit of water from time to time, but not during the ripening process, of course, just to keep the plant alive. That's the most important part. And over there, that's the view to the west and to the south. Sun's still out, and in
the far back there is the Black Forest.
Yeah, in the far back you can see the hills of the Black Forest, and this gives you actually the view of the southern part of the village, the church and the bell tower, and in the back there again the bigger city of Ludwigshafen and Mannheim, and even
What beer are you drinking?
but not with a Zoom meeting.
Kind of flush.
Someone asked, what beer are you drinking?
It's a local beer from Deidesheim.
So neighbor beer.
It's Pils, but it's empty.
Empty.
This is it. All right, guys. So this is it.
I think we'll go back to the cellar video. Before we
Yes.
go back, there was a question on the during the other video about the cellar. Franzi and Dom, in terms of the barrels and the shapes, can you explain what the difference is to the least contact between the ovals and, let's say, a tonneau or a larger food?
I would say I haven't seen it in.
Put it on file. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in in real, but it said that the oval shape, the leaves are more in the flow than in a round shape. If that's true or not, yeah.
Yeah, probably most likely. The lease is longer in suspension, and also it's, you know, the tradition of the Pfalz was not to sell the wine in barrel, like the full barrel, like they did in the Mosel, like where they have the round barrels. So we have the ovals just to save more space.
Yeah, that's what I explained.
And okay, yeah. And the Mosel guys, they sold the whole barrel, and it's been round to you know, sell it a little easier, get it out of the cellar quicker. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the concluding cellar video.
Yes.
And see you back at the
you're
corner. Okay.
perfect. You put the tape back on, and we see us in the winery.
A little bit more about the vinification. We're in the cellar, and next level is the crush pad. As you can see, there are a couple of steel tanks. You will get a full impression later in the video. So that's the only time when steel is involved in the vinification at the winery for the white wines. Some of the red wines, the Pinot Noir, some of it is fermented in steel, but then aged again in neutral or couple of new oak or used barrique, whatever. Yeah, but the white wines just settle in those tanks. Once, well, I continue with. Sorry for the mix, but it continues at the crush pad where the grapes are pressed and usually crushed and macerated for a couple of hours or overnight, pressed the next day or after the maceration. And then the must goes into those settling tanks. Without any addition, no enzymes, nothing is added. The solids just settle by gravity. And after more or less 2 days, 3 days, the juice goes again by gravity down into the cellar. And by the amount of juice I get in those tanks, I choose the size of the barrel. You've seen all those different sizes. Yeah, as I said, I will choose by the amount of what I have from the press, from the settled juice, the size of the barrel, which also means, like, usually the smaller the barrel, the higher the quality of the grape, or the higher the selection of or the smaller the selection of the grape. Let's put it this way, not the higher the quality, that's the smaller the selection of the grapes. We do, especially like for the Riesling, selective pickings with more than 3 or 4 passes in the same vineyard. Talking about the Saumagen, for example, the Saumagen is our most important vineyard, and we have a couple of passes in the Saumagen. It's not one big plot. No, it's many parcels in the Saumagen, and especially in there, working with the predicates, we do selective pickings in the vineyard at different ripening levels. We ferment them all separate, which means we pick different ripening levels. We crush them. Like, first pick is the rather light yellow colored grape. second pick in the same vineyard could be a bit darker yellow colored grape, third pick amber colored grape. So it really depends always on the vintage, but let's say at least for the Saumagen Riesling, 3 different picks and all fermented separate. Macerated, pressed, settled in those tanks, and then into the barrels just by gravity. If I want to go into those 600 liter barrels here in the back, I just go from up here through these holes and choose my barrel. And if I want to go to one of those 1200, 1600 liter barrels in the front part, I attach another hose and it goes all along the wall to the front part. And yeah, so the juice, or the tradition of Koehler-Ruprecht, is also fermentation with native yeasts. It's all spontaneous fermentation, which also means that basically once the juice is in the barrels, it's a lot of waiting and checking must weights and yeah, topping up the barrels, but nothing else. The majority, or some of the wines, stay in the barrels on full lees for at least 7 or 8 months. The Saumagen Riesling between 10 and 11 months, usually on full lees. No racking, no batonnage, just yeah, give it time to ferment. If wines or if barrels did not ferment until the next harvest, we sometimes, extend the bottling to after harvest and yeah, hope that they finish fermentation after that. Usually the temperature in here, like in most cellars, cools down during winter and gets a little bit warmer with opening up the doors to the crush pad during spring or when it comes to summer. Yeah, so it's not a big problem to ferment the wines dry in here. Okay, I just said that I wanted to give you an insight of one of our 1600 liter barrels. It's empty, so it's not, no lees, nothing in there right now. Yeah, let's have a look what this beautiful lady is hiding. Oh, we haven't talked about the average age of the barrels. You can see that we're not talking about new oak. So here, well, the oak is the material of the wood of the barrel, yes, but with an average age of, let's say, 50, 60 years, we're not talking about the flavor of oak anymore. Like, for example, with barriques, it's more about the very slow oxygen impact on the wine or on the fermenting juice. So it's yeah, it's this combined with a native yeast fermentation. That's the tradition here in the winery. And yeah, as I said, it's not the oak taste, which you don't have anymore. We have barrels that are older than 100 years, so it's not, as I said, not new barrels. What we are talking about. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a view of one of those big barrels we ferment the juices in. So you can see lots and lots and lots of tartrates, which is fine, absolutely fine. The barrels are just cleaned with water, and once the wines are racked from the lees, oops, sorry, and cleaned with water, I just preserve them with sulfur. If they will be empty for longer, like longer than, let's say, half a year or 4 months, I need to water them, because it's not, as I said, it's too dry in here, and barrels or wood likes to leak at one point. So that's the inside of one of those barrels. As we might probably have explained before, or you might probably even know, Koehler-Ruprecht produces only predicates wine, which means all the wines are at least cabinet level. Well, the predicates are a specific ripeness level of, or picked at a certain ripeness level of the grapes. And with the predicates, you're not allowed to chaptalize the wines. But the tradition of Koehler-Ruprecht is also that each predicate, and here I'm talking especially about the dry wines, or each predicate has its own character or personality. The dry cabinet wines are usually the lightest in taste. The dry Spätlese wines are more elegant, have a bit more structure compared to cabinet, and the Auslese Trocken is the most complex wine. And I want to give you a little explanation of how things happen before bottling. Usually we have at least 2 bottling sessions during the year, one May or June with the basic Riesling, the Kaltstadter Riesling, maybe Muscatella or Scheurebe. Sometimes it's another bottling for the Pinot Blanc and the Chardonnay, and the last bottling is usually for the Saumagen Riesling wines. And I told you we pick the grapes at different ripening levels, ferment them all separate. And from the Saumagen, which is our like Vineyard, we try to have at least the 3 different predicates, Kabinett, Spätlese and Auslese, trocken from each vintage. So once it comes to the bottling, or our bottling is getting closer, we take samples of all the barrels and taste through all the barrels. So with the predicates, you have a minimum must weight. You have to pick the grapes at, or if you want to name a certain predicate, the grapes have to be picked at a certain ripeness level. For example, this barrel here was picked at 88 degrees Oechsle. It's like the sugar level in the grape. And this is Spätlese level. Spätlese starts at 85 degrees Oechsle. Auslese starts at 92. And between 73 and 85, it's cabinet. So it's not, usually it's not a problem to reach those predicates, or to reach at least Spätlese. Auslese is due to, or thanks to climate change, also not a problem anymore. But I want to explain you how we make the decisions of blending which barrel goes into which wine. So we have as you've seen, a big amount of barrels from those different parcels, from those different picks. And once we taste through all the barrels, we categorize them, and that's the only time when we have to have the number in our head. We categorize them by the must weight they were picked at. Category of cabinet, a category of Spätlese, and a category of Auslese. By taste, we make the decision if, for example, the Spätlese barrel has the elegance and the structure of a Spätlese, or if it doesn't. it's degraded and goes into the cabinet. So I can always go a step down to the lower predicate. I can make a cabinet from a Spätlese, but I can not make a Spätlese from a cabinet. Yeah, correct. So it's all a decision made of taste or made by our taste, and that's the most important part. If it comes to the finished wine, or what's exactly the result of the wines from this vintage. Sometimes we even have reserve versions. It doesn't mean that the wines stay longer in the barrels. No, it's basically a barrel selection. Like in the samples of those many barrels from Salman, for example, if 1 barrel, 2 barrels are extraordinarily complex, extraordinarily different, more elegant than the regular Spätlese elegance, those are like potentially the R wines, and they are bottled at the same time, like the other Salman Riesling, but aged for 3 to 5 years longer in the bottle. So they are picked like from vintage on, or as I said, from bottling on 3 to 5 years longer in the bottle aging. And yeah, that's what's happening down here. It's
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Well, that was an extraordinary visit. It's the longest one yet.
Oh, all right.
But wonderful.
We didn't plan on that.
I hope everybody took notes, because there's a ton of information given. Thank you so much. That was.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
great.
yeah. Well, since we can't visit you and tell you all the news, we have to give them on the virtual base.
That's why we're doing this. So it's great to see you guys, and we hope to see you sooner than later.
Definitely.
Good luck with everything in Germany and the election this year, and good luck with our election this year.
We don't have an election this year.
Oh, you don't? When's Miracle? Oh, okay.
Next year.
Next year, okay. Well,
Yeah.
aren't you lucky?
The only election is the selection of the grapes.
Well, let's hope it continues to be a great weather and great vintage for you guys. And
Yep.
forward to talking to you again later this year. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye. Great to see you. Thank you, Ray.
Bye
Thank
to
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Cheers.